Thank you for having us. Me and my pops, we came over from California, so we got a couple of California boys in the house. Anyone else from California? No. One. There we go. I like it.
Yeah. Great to share the stage with you. As it is in the culture of DOKU.TECH, basically, while I was talking yesterday with Kushturm, we decided to have this fireside chat with you, basically, and dive deeper into the story of Z Shoes, basically. And before we dive into how you started the company, it would be really interesting to share a bit more about who you are and what you do, basically, to the audience.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, so my name is Zach Batstone. About 2 years ago, I founded a company called Z Shoes, a California lifestyle company where we make our shoes out of 100% organic materials, sustainably sourced from the Amazon of Peru. And really what we're trying to create is a fashion impact company, where at the heart of our company is impact, but on the front end, we're creating a fashion company. So we know we have to compete fashion-wise in order to create sustainable change on the ground. Yeah.
So how did the idea come? How did you start the company, basically?
Yeah,
what was the trigger for it?
I talked a little bit about this in the seminar earlier, or the workshop earlier, but it really comes down to passion. When I graduated from university, I went and lived in Peru for about a year, researching indigenous communities, living with them. And ultimately what I found was that exploitation exists still today, especially when it comes to commodities. And what I really found was that all they're lacking is a just market, a place that they could find a marketplace for their goods where they aren't being exploited. So that's what we bring to the table. We create a market in the States as well as around the world for shoes, where the money trickles back to the communities who are actually making the shoes. So it's pretty. Okay.
And initially, the company started on Kickstarter with a crowdfunding campaign. Yeah. How did that go?
Yeah, so kind of interesting story about using technology. We use technology to actually launch our company. There's something called crowdfunding. One of the platforms is called Kickstarter, and we actually used Kickstarter to launch our platform by just an idea. So what's awesome about Kickstarter is that all you have to do is have a concept and get people behind you in order to start.
And after the first round of funding that you got on Kickstarter, you started to generate revenue on your own.
Yeah, so pretty much Kickstarter will just get you off the ground, and from there you have to really generate a sustainable business and find a way to sustain that growth.
Okay, and how's that going so far, basically, with generating revenue and income from selling the product? Yeah,
so as most product companies, you hit up and downs, and about 6 months ago, we were very dedicated to charity based on impact, but we made a switch, and we still have impact at the heart of our company, but we had to compete fashion-wise. We had to compete as a company first, and then have money trickle down. So really, we pivoted about 6 months ago in order to change our perspective, yeah.
So I believe this comes to the topic that we were talking yesterday. So you didn't start to compete with smaller bunch of companies, but you started Z Shoes to compete with big players in the industry, basically.
Yeah, so our goal is to disrupt the system. So in order to disrupt the system, you have to attack the largest companies, right? Because if you're only playing with the younger guys, then you're always going to be stuck there. So for us, we wanted to hit the system at the top. So what we really did was we looked for collaborations. We looked for other companies who are leading the charge in the sense of fashion. And what we brought to the table is the impact, the story side. So we would go to these large companies and ask them, would you want to do a collaboration? And oftentimes they see us as a small company and they would say no. But what we have unique that we bring to the table is the uniqueness of an impact story that goes along with the product. So it's really a twofold approach where we create high fashion products, meaning t-shirts, shoes, but at the same time as when you buy that product, you know who's making the product, you know the mission behind the product, and you know what it stands for. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you create those connections with the causes? Like, do organizations come to you and say, okay, we aim to do this, or you have a team who basically search out for those?
Yeah. For that, it really depends on for us, we try to find like-minded companies. So it really comes down to finding collaborations that fit within your brand. So what we do is we find companies that we want to strive to be, and then what happens is we utilize their customer base to sell our products. So why create something that there's already, so you have customers already coming to a platform. What we're bringing is a new product with an impact story to the same customer base. So we bring a unique approach of impact fashion in a sustainable way. So a lot of times you get organic companies and they don't source their products or they source their materials in an environmentally friendly, or they do an environmentally friendly way, but they don't think about the people. What we do at Z Shoes is we have a twofold approach where not only are we thinking about the people involved, but also the planet. So meaning all our ingredients are organic, but at the same time as we're investing in the infrastructure of the communities that we source from, if that makes sense.
Okay, and there were 2 campaigns currently running, right? Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more about them?
So at Z Shoes, we really try to create products that are going along with movements. So our latest one was looking at women's empowerment and creating a campaign around self-love. So we really turned the script and put it on ourselves to how do we create more impact by loving ourselves. So that was a new product that we came out with in collaboration with Net-a-Porter, if you know Net-a-Porter. And for us, that was a breakthrough moment because we not only knew that we had a market in the States, but we knew that there was interest also in Europe for sustainable fashion.
And you're wearing the shoes right now, right? And if people are interested in checking out the products, where can they find them? Yeah,
so you can, actually I put on our Instagram story a discount code. If you guys we cover shipping, so check it out on zshoesorganic.com. Zshoes Organic is our Instagram name. But pretty much for us is we really want to generate change when you're thinking about consumerism. And technology has been a great platform for us to do that in a sense of social media. So we launched our company purely on the Instagram platform. We use Facebook for Facebook adverts, but majority of our advertising content distribution comes from Instagram. And what's amazing about our generation is if you have a concept and you have enough people behind you, then you can actually generate real impact.
Yeah. And while talking about generation, yesterday we also talked about the importance of basically your target group is Generation Z, right? And why are you focused on Generation Z?
Yeah. So Z Shoes, the basis for the name is playing off the idea of the Generation Z. So I'm Generation Y. The next generation that's coming up is Generation Z. So we're playing with the idea of it's a new gen that cares about where their products are made. They care about tracking where the ingredients are coming from, the materials are coming from, and create impact sourcing. So what I mean by impact sourcing is not only buying the materials at a fair price, but on top of that, figuring out how can we invest in the infrastructure of these community members, because oftentimes you get organic products that they buy from these communities, and once they don't make the product anymore, they move on to the next community. So what we're doing is trying to create that infrastructural development on a sustainable level. Yeah. And for us, we found that if you create business model, then you don't have to go out and look for funding when it comes to it, like supporting a community, because the company is generating the funding that trickles down to the community members, if that makes sense.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that new generations want to know more where the product, the clothing is coming from, and what materials are used, and also have a cause associated to it. Is it the same thing with all products, or is it like a new movement that is happening only in the States?
I think that would be a good question for the crowd, but how many of you guys care about where your products are made? Do you look past the label and think about more research into who's making my products? Is it fairly made? Can you get a show of hands? There we go. So I think there is a trend, and I think it's not only a trend that's going on in the United States. I think actually Europe is leading that trend, and we're actually a little late to the party, like usual. But I think for us, we're really we're looking not only to generate change in California, but around the world. And I think a lot of times no matter where you are. Like if you ask me where I'm from, I usually don't say I'm from the United States. I say I'm from California because it has a different perspective, and I don't have to talk about Donald Trump all the time. But I think I really saw from going from Peru to Asia to Europe that no matter where you are, there's a desire to think sustainably, to buy consciously, and then also to be behind a movement. So our generation is unique in the fact that we have the accessibility is at our fingertips, with meaning Instagram to crowdfunding, that if you have a strong idea and a strong concept of what you want to do, and you have people behind you, then you could actually create a company or create a movement or whatnot. Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned the tools. Basically, one person from Kosovo, from Pristina, basically can launch a company of its own on Instagram and start selling his product globally, right? Mm-hmm. And related to the causes, like what percentage do you give back to the causes from the sales of the product, and is that sustainable for the company? Yeah,
so for us something that you got to think too is about the bottom line is if you're giving money back, how are you actually making money? And for us we see it as something that is as you grow, the money is going to increase, right? So we put it into our bylaws that no matter how large we get, $5 from each product goes directly to the community members, and we see it as a two-way. So not only are we going into the communities and sourcing the ingredients in a sustainable manner, but also we're returning funds to develop the infrastructure. Because oftentimes you go to these communities, they see an economic development, a peak, and oftentimes they don't have the knowledge or skills or education to invest in things that could generate real change. So what we do is we go on the ground, we make sure that we invest in the healthcare of the communities, we invest in the education of the communities, but if you think of it as a business mindset too, that makes sense, right? Because if you're building up the infrastructure of the communities where you're sourcing your ingredients from, then you're going to get better ingredients, right? Or materials. So really we see it not only as, and if it's going to be sustainable, it has to make sense business-wise, right? Because at the end of the day, our impact is generated by how successful we are as a company. And I think over the next year or so, the past year or so, we've really seen that movement start, the movement for investing in the future of the exploited or investing in the future of a generation that cares.
And recently you launched a couple of new products, right?
Yeah, so we just launched our clothing line. So we were a shoe company for the first 2 years. And we saw success in the sense of sustainable fashion, but we want to move into more of a rounded fashion company instead of just a shoe company. But for us, we take a simplified approach to fashion. Oftentimes when people start a new company, they think they ought to create some new concept that's never been thought about before, and in these vibrant colors, but at the end of the day, what it is just creating your unique approach to something that consumers have already seen and they can already relate with, if that makes sense. So oftentimes, say if you, how many people are wearing Converse Originals or Vans Originals? Usually the amount of people, or Sam Smith's, the amount of people that are buy the basic level of shoes is skyrocketed over the last couple of years. So what I see that is how do we bring a dignified approach to simple fashion in a way that's unique?
Like recently, there's a growing trend. We see people that wear clothing without a brand tag. And do you think that's good or bad for a business, basically? Because when that person walks, it's not a walking commercial anymore, basically. Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, we actually want to be a part of that movement. If you see the footwear, all we do is put our logo on the back here. And then our t-shirts, we put the logo on the back here as well. So we're really limiting the amount of, because at the end of the day, we don't want to be walking billboards, you know? I don't want to be someone promoting a company that I don't support. So for us is not only do you get to support a company that you care about, but at the same time, you get to make it your own. So we really think that if you put a brand on your chest, you're putting yourself a perception of yourself just based on that brand. But what happens is when you take away the logos, take away the branding, what you're left with is yourself, right? And then from there, you create your unique style based on that. So for me, I think that's the movement, is a unique approach to fashion using technology to grow your company, but at the same time, coming back to the bottom line of how do we create sustainable change.
So basically having a Tesla t-shirt on, so I'm like kind of a walking commercial basically for the company.
How do you feel about that?
I feel good. I feel good. Big Tesla fan, and lots of people know about that. And like when we say about selling products online, basically, what do you think the trend is going? Now shifting, talking about the importance, because probably there are people in the audience who have companies here that sell products online. Like, how easy is it to manage a company where you sell products online?
Yeah, I think the wave is definitely moving towards retail purely online. But what happens is companies like Amazon and Zappos have ruined it for the little man. Not in a sense ruined it, but they've set a standard where people don't want to pay for shipping, at least in the US. So what we have to do is even though we're a small company, we have to focus on our customer base. And at the end of the day, if Nike's giving free shipping and then we don't provide any free shipping, and on top of that, you've never heard of us before, that's a tough sell. So for us is, I think the trend towards online retail is going to grow, but I think that experience, the experience of buying online, is going to increase. So in a sense of creating more, with AI development, creating more of a personal shopping experience. And it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But we're excited because at the end of the day, as soon as you go into a store, you're losing 50% up top. So for us is, if we directly work with a consumer, it's better for all hands, right? So not only are we growing as a business, but the impact is growing as well. So for us, I think as much as we can control our customer base in a sense of direct to consumer, it'll be in a better place, and you can control who that customer base is. But oftentimes, like we were saying earlier, collaborations is how you generate new networks and new customer bases, as well as brand strength. So at every collaboration that we do, we grow our brand based on their customer base, if that makes sense. We did one with All Saints, and then we did one with Net-a-Porter, or Net-a-Porter. And pretty much what that does is it puts our footwear in a position where customers are already going to. And then from there, the customers can come onto our page after. But if you just put up a website, it's so hard to actually gain the trust of your customers to buy that product from a website they've never been to before, right? Especially if we find the trend. If I even do this myself, I'll go on a website, find the product, and then automatically go to Amazon and see how I can order it on Amazon. And I think it's just that trust factor of we know that Amazon's going to show up 3 days, or whatever, however long it takes in Pristina. But we believe that we know that they're going to be held accountable. My credit card information is going to be safe. So that getting over that hurdle of gaining the trust of your customer base is something that takes a while. But I think by putting yourself in collaborations that put yourself in a positive light, not only for the impact, but also for the fashion. And I think that gives you some street cred in a sense of once you get one under your belt, then you can go to more companies and be like, look, this has worked in the past. Here is how we can generate change within your company. And we're seeing that model scale. And I think it's more of a trend of large fashion companies are trying to figure out how they can create products based on an impact story. So usually when we come to the table, that's our playing card. Oftentimes it doesn't involve bringing our customer base, but yeah.
And, before diving to questions from the audience, as a last question, what are the next plans for Z Shoes? What's coming up?
What's coming up, huh? So we just launched a new gen campaign, and this year we're engaging in a few collaborations with other companies that fit within our brand, and hopefully will propel us in the right direction. But at the end of the day, that's what we as a small company out of California, all we can really do is continue to strive and try to compete with those large names. But for me personally, once we locked in All Saints and Net-a-Porter, for me that made a lot of sense that there is a market for this, and you got to just create a product that can compete in that market. And that's the toughest part. Is someone asked earlier about price point. How do you create a price point that justifies your product? And that's something that we look at a lot. Because not only you don't want to overshoot yourself because you won't sell any shoes, and you don't want to undershoot yourself because at the end of the day, that can do damage to your brand. And I think for us is we're really conscious about doing the market research to figure out who's selling what at what price and how do we compete at that price point. And it comes down to you have to create products that are the highest quality that you can possibly can. Because at the end of the day, we were talking about this yesterday, was if you buy a product based on charity or impact alone, you'll buy that, feel good about it. But if you don't like the product, you're rarely going to go back unless you want to feel good about yourself again. So for us is we want to create a fashion company that you want to come and buy our clothes because because they're comfortable, because they're made out of the best materials. They compete with the highest in their market. So that's what's up next is we're going to continue developing our product. Create new collaborations, but also at the same time keep generating products within our own brand. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.